we're going to be multiplying complex numbers. So the first thing we need to do in order for us to be successful today is that we need to be able to write a plus or minus b squared to a plus or minus b times a plus or minus b. Then we need to be able to double distribute, then change the I squared to -1, and then combine like terms. Your I is equal to -1. And if you need to put a title on this, we are multiplying complex numbers. If we wanted to get rid of that square root, we can square both sides. So this actually tells us also that I squared is equal to -1. So wherever we see an I squared, we're going to change it to -1. Okay, let's start by multiplying -2 times I times 2I. When we multiply, we first multiply all of the coefficients. If you see the I, there's no number here, but it doesn't mean that there's no 1. So whenever there's no coefficient, we always put a 1. So this is actually 1I. So we're going to multiply all of our numbers first. So we've got -2 times 1 times -2. Sorry, times 2. And then times I times I. Everybody good so far? This gives us -4 times I squared. Question so far? All right, so here's the thing that you've never done before is we're going to incorporate this -1 equals to, I'm sorry, this I squared equal to -1. Here is my I squared, so I'm going to replace I squared with -1. And then -4 times -1 is +4. Any questions? Okay, let's go ahead and do another one. We've got 3I times 4I times 2I. So I'm going to give you guys a chance to write it or to answer it. Or just do the first step. So if you've got 24I to the third, you are on the right track. Great job. But this one, remember we can change I squared to -1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group 2 of the I squared. So instead of saying 24 times I cubed, we're going to say 24 times I squared. Because this one changes to what number? What does I squared change to? -1, right? But yes, so we've got 24 times I times -1, which gives us -24I. Any questions so far? This is kind of fun, huh? Yeah? I like mathy problems. A lot of multiplying. All right. Let's go on to multiplying the complex numbers. Oops. Remember, complex numbers are in the form a plus or minus bi. So our first example for this part, we're going to say 3 minus 4i, and we're going to multiply that by -7 plus, you have two parentheses and you double distributed. That's what we're doing here. We're going to start with 3, and we're going to multiply it times -7, and that gives us -21. This is an ugly color, huh? Let me make it darker. And then we're going to do the same thing, the 3 times 2i, which gives us a positive 6i. -4 times -7. And notice how I'm going to put it under the one that's going to have one i also. So this is positive 28i. And then this -4 times 21, that gives us -8i squared. Questions so far? This is where the magic happens. Are you ready? Here we go. Our next step is to change our I squared to -1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle my I squared, because that's equal to -1. That's going to be multiplied -8 times -1. That basically changes this sign to a positive. So I'm going to move it. I'm going to put it up here because it's a whole number also, and that'll be a positive 8. Does everybody see what I did? I'm going to undo it so I can do it again. We're changing this I squared. Oopsie. We're changing this I squared to -1. -8 times -1 gives us a positive 8. So I'm going to cross it off, and because it's a whole number now, I'm going to put it under the whole number. Because our last step is to combine like terms, all we do is add down. So -21 plus 8 is -13. And then 6 plus 28 is a positive 34i. And that's our answer. How do you guys feel? Pretty okay? Okay, go to your Pear Deck so you guys can try the first problem. And let me give you guys the link again. So there's a problem on the Pear Deck for you to try. All right, let's go ahead and go over it. Apply it by -2. We get -8. Then 4 times -2i is -8i. Any questions so far? Remember, we are multiplying these numbers. Let me write it up here. 4 times -2, and then 4 times -2i. So this gives us -8, -8i. Then we're going to do the same thing with the second number into my imaginary number. So we have 3i times -2. And that gives us -6i. And then 3i times negative 2i, that gives us negative 6i squared. Any questions so far? Now we want to look at my I squared. That I squared is equal to negative 1. So that's basically making this 6 a positive number. So we're going to put it over here, positive 6. And then we can cross it off over here. And this is where we're combining like terms. So now we have negative 8 plus 6, we get negative 2. And then negative 8i minus 6i gives us negative 14i. Any questions? So remember, we are multiplying these. Notice how there's no symbol in between these parentheses. So that means that we're multiplying them. All right. Let's go ahead and do another example. We've got negative 2 plus I squared. Now, because this is squared, this whole binomial is squared, we can rewrite this as negative 2 plus I, negative 2 plus I. There's two of them. And then we do the same process again. We start with negative 2. So negative 2 times negative 2 gives us positive 4. Then negative 2 times I is negative 2I. Same thing with the second term, or my imaginary number. We do times negative 2 is negative 2I. I times I is I squared. We look for my I squared. Here's my I squared. That's equal to negative 1. Notice how the I right now doesn't have an actual coefficient, but it really does, right? It's a 1. So we have negative 1 times 1, and that gives us negative 1. So I'm going to cross this side out so it doesn't confuse me. And then we just add 4 minus 1, 3. Negative 2i minus 2i is a negative 4i. Questions? All right, go to the Pear Deck for your last example. We're going to start by multiplying 1 times 1, that gives us 1. 1 times negative I, that's negative 1i, right? Everybody good so far? Okay, now let's do negative I times 1, that's negative 1i. Negative I times negative I, that gives us a positive I squared. Everybody good so far? Yes? All right. We look for the I squared. I squared is equal to what? Negative 1, right? There's a 1 here. So we're going to multiply negative 1 times 1, and we get negative 1. Negative 1 minus 1, 1 minus 1 gives us 0, right? Negative 1i plus negative 1i gives us a negative 2i. So our answer is negative 2i.